Happy Tuesday and happy So What Day. I hope that you're having a great start to your week and loving the weather and the sunshine. We are having hot days. I think it's officially the dog days of summer. And yes, I know I'm wearing glasses. It's a different look for me. I ran out of contact lenses and I'm waiting for them to come in. So whoever is saying, why are you in glasses? That's why. All right, so let's see. We have so much to talk about today. Apparently, National Ice Cream Day was yesterday or a couple days ago. I guess it was just yesterday. So what an exciting holiday. I mean, let's celebrate ice cream every day, right? But especially on National Ice Cream Day. I did see there were some promotions for different ice cream shops giving away, buy one, get one free, all that kind of stuff. And actually, I was at the store last night and there was no ice cream. So I don't know if the freezer was on the fritz or something, but it was nuts. So at any rate, we are going to make ice cream today using our sewing machines and using our embroidery machines and using our fantastic, wonderful sulky thread. So I hope you are along for the ride so that you can make a very cute ice cream pouch in the hoop of your embroidery machine. It is super cute. It's about the size of my hand. And we've added a little swivel clip D-ring here. You could actually add like a circle ring, a key ring, and even if you don't have the right size hardware that is in the pattern for this little guy, you can adjust your ribbon width and put anything that you want to up here. You can even omit this little hanging clip, but I kind of like it because then you can add it as a backpack charm as your kids or grandkids go off to school, and put some pencils or a little USB thumb drive or something inside. But it is just the right size to hold a small pair of scissors. About a 5.5 inch pair of scissors fits in here really nicely as well. Nice and snug. And we've got lots of layers of sulky felty. There's 2 layers for the back and 2 layers for the front. And we have sulky stiffy stabilizer between those layers, as well as sulky perfect applique. We're going to fuse together the 2 layers, the pink and the tan, so that they act as one. And then we're going to construct the entire thing, as I mentioned, in the hoop of our embroidery machine. So that's what we are making today on So What. You can grab this in the hoop embroidery design at sulky.com. It's only $5. And you'll get the design files for the front and the back. It's 2 hoopings, okay? If you have one of the larger size hoops, you could actually import both designs and kind of do them one after the other in the same hooping if you wanted to. But it is really meant for 2 hoopings. And then, well, actually, I take that back. You cannot combine them into one hooping because we have to finish the front part first so that it becomes our pocket that we attach to the back design file. So I retract what I just said. You cannot make them in the same hoop unless, I guess, you're making multiples. Anyway, at any rate, let's plan on 2 hoopings just to stay on the safe side. But like I mentioned, you don't have to use it for a little pair of scissors. It would be absolutely adorable with a few colored pencils or markers inside. It's a little bit short maybe for markers, but still looks really cute. You could add a little gift card to an ice cream shop of your choice. You could add a couple little treats. So lots of different options for that. All right. Before we get into the how-tos for that, I wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of our great sale at sulky.com. It is the whole quilt and caboodle sale. So you can see we've got 30% off Sulky 50 weight cotton thread. This is our high quality, long staple Egyptian cotton thread. I like to use it pretty much as an all-purpose thread. It's really great for quilting and piecing, all kinds of things. We also have 35% off cutaway stabilizers and 25% off of our gifts for quilters. If you haven't checked out our gifts category on the website, there are a ton of cute things to shop there. And if you find yourself, this close to getting that free shipping when you grab up all of your stabilizers and thread, head on over to the gifts for quilters that are 25% off. You'll find cute little insulated cups, mugs. You'll find scissors. You'll find pouches, project pouches, all kinds of things. So be sure to check all that out at sulky.com as you're adding things to your cart, or if something strikes your fancy today during So What and you have to have it, be sure to shop all those sale items. Another thing I wanted to talk about because, I don't know, it's fun and exciting and such a fun thing to do over the summer is have a movie night, right? And there's a lot of blockbuster summer movies coming out. And one happens to be coming out this weekend that has gotten a lot of hype. Am I right? I mean, you have to be living under a rock to not know about this movie that is hitting the theaters this Friday. So I thought it would be fun because I of course am going to take my girls to this movie. And I thought it would be fun to make them a shirt and embroider it with a fun design that goes along with the movie. So we can get all themed up, maybe, wear our pink poodle lipstick and do our nails and really have fun with it. So I found a slew of designs on Etsy. Now, a lot of the times if you want a licensed design, or, you're looking for something really specific for a sports team, things like that, you pretty much need to go shopping for those on Etsy and go to the independent designers who are kind of making them and knocking them off, because they are incredibly protected. So this is very similar to the logo, although it has, minor differences, so that, an independent designer is able to sell it. So, they kind of get away with things like that. And hopefully I don't get in trouble here today on So What, because I don't want to step on anybody's licensing toes, that's for sure. But at any rate, I found this design. It comes in 2 sizes. And let me pull up, it's called Pancake Embroidery Designs, I think is the company. So this would look really great on a t-shirt. And with a t-shirt knit, you really need a cutaway stabilizer. You need that stabilizer to remain behind those stitches throughout the life of the t-shirt, so that when the t-shirt stretches and goes through multiple washings and all that, the design stays together. Okay, so you need a lightweight cutaway stabilizer for that. You can even use a fusible if you want. I like to use a non-fusible unless I have a magnetic hoop and I can fuse only where the design's going to be. That way I can cut away the excess stabilizer that isn't fused to the shirt. Or you can wait until your embroidery is complete, trim away the excess, and then fuse the stabilizer beyond the embroidery perimeter just for extra security. But, at any rate, I like a soft and sheer for most of my t-shirt projects. And then I add Sulky Tender Touch, which is another fusible permanent stabilizer. I fuse that to the embroidery wrong side after embroidery is complete, of course. And it has a nice silky hand to it. So it feels really nice against your skin and protects your skin from the somewhat scratchy embroidery stitches. So you'll see that on ready-to-wear items like baby onesies and even fleece sweatshirts that are embroidered, from factories and things like that. Even those have something similar to the Sulky Tender Touch on the back side. So if you want to theme it up this weekend as well and get out to the movie theaters, it would be super fun to create some shirts for whoever's going with you to the movies, or if you're going by yourself, because it is super fun to take yourself to the movies as well. And then you're not dependent on anybody to get there on time. You can buy yourself whatever kind of concessions you want to have, and you don't have to share your popcorn. Just saying. All right. So in addition to a t-shirt, I thought it also might be cute to just have the letter B and create this on a freestanding patch, and then make it into a key ring, a key fob, something like that. So this is another really great design. And I had all of these designers saved, and now I'm not finding it. So I'm going to have to put it in the comments because I want to give credit where credit is due here on these designs. But again, this is another Etsy designer. If you search Barbie designs on Etsy, Barbie embroidery designs, things like that, you'll find a lot of options. But this one I thought was great. It's just the B. It's a little bit more subtle. My girls are kind of transitioning out of Barbies. They actually, I know, they never really got into it. But man, it was really the thing when I was growing up. So at any rate, I thought it would be fun to embroider this letter just on like a circle of cork fabric. Then you can add another circle behind it and maybe a little hanging loop with a key ring, key fob, swivel clip, something like that, sandwiched between those layers. Just stitch around the circle and you have yourself a little commemorative key fob. So anyways, I thought that would be kind of another fun little treat, if you're headed out to the movies this weekend. And we happen to have a really great thread collection that goes with all of these great designs. Gives you all those great pink colors, the black for detail stitching, a gray, neutral, and all these great pinks. And this is already bundled at sulky.com. It's our Think Pink collection, I believe it's called. And it comes with some breast cancer awareness embroidery designs as well. But these designs are all perfect for, celebrating this movie release this Friday. Some people are saying some other great summer blockbuster movies are also coming up. I have heard of this one as well, The Sound of Freedom. That's getting a lot of hype as well. Lots of people saying, I still have my Barbie collections. Love it. It's so nostalgic and really, this kind of throwback to the 80s, really. I know that Barbies go way before the 80s. My mom still has her first Midge Barbie, which is probably from the 50s. I know they go way back, but really the boom of Barbie and the Malibu beach house and all the pink and all of that really hit its height in the early 80s, from what I can remember at least. But anyways, there's really this resurgence from all these things from the 80s, and it's so fun to kind of get in the spirit, right? And actually get to our sewing machines and make something really fun to go along with it. So speaking of these key fobs, key rings, this type of thing, I'm going to show you how to create this ice cream pouch in the hoop. And we're actually going to add this part during the stitch out process as well. So you don't have to even take your embroidery module off. You don't have to go to regular sewing. We're going to attach all these layers as steps within the embroidery design files. So when you grab up the ice cream in the hoop embroidery design, it's going to come with your 2 design files, as I mentioned. The front, which is the pocket, which is the little cone piece. the back, which stitches all of your ice cream details and then stitches the back to the project to conceal all those raw edges. So you'll get 2 design files. You also get 2 additional design files that are labeled, I want to say DL. It's in the PDF instructions that come with your design files once you purchase it. But the 2 design files that are labeled differently are just the outline stitches of the front design and the back design. The reason for those files is if you would like to pre-cut your applique pieces or your cone and your back pieces, right? They're not really appliques, but you get the idea. If you would like to pre-cut those rather than cutting them, while your felty and stabilizer is in the hoop, as you would do for an applique design, you will download those other 2 designs that are labeled differently and stitch those out onto Sulky Tear Easy Stabilizer. Then you'll take those out of the hoop and you will cut along the needle perforations and you'll have templates to use so that you can pre-cut your applique pieces. This is meant for people who do not have cutting machines, who cannot use SVG files. So we threw those in there for you if you want to pre-cut your pieces and you don't happen to have a cutting machine. Because to be quite honest, this design was digitized before those cutting machines even came out and before there were even SVG files. But I got my hands on this design and kind of redid it a little bit so that it was ordered a little bit differently so that we could add our key ring and a couple of other things I kind of changed around in the digitizing process for this design. So if you're familiar with this, if you've taken a Sulky certification course and you created this differently in the hoop, you will find that it's been a little updated and revamped and changed a little bit for this particular project today. So I hope that all makes sense. It's a lot of background information, but I kind of wanted to explain it to you all so that you understand there's not only 2 files that you need, there's really only 2 files that you need, but there are 2 additional files within your zip folder once you purchase the design. And again, this is all explained in the PDF instructions that come with your design files as well. So it'll probably be less confusing when you're able to look at that PDF as you're working your way through the design. All right. So along with our ice cream in the hoop design files, you're also going to need, of course, some Sulky thread. We're going to be working with Sulky rayon thread for this. As I mentioned, you need Sulky Perfect Applique Fusible Web, just a little bit for fusing together our cone pieces and fusing together our ice cream back pieces. We're also going to be working with Sulky Stiffy Stabilizer so that this has nice structure, it stands on its own, and when you put your scissors in there, they're nice and protected inside all those layers. You also want to make sure to grab up some clear embroidery tape. Sulky clear embroidery tape is amazing. I absolutely love it. I have it actually in pieces all over the place because after I use it, I can reuse it about 3 or maybe even 4 more times for different projects. So sometimes I'll put it on the side of my machine if I'm working through one project that's going to need a couple different hoopings, such as this one. Right now I have 4 pieces of it on the side of my table waiting for the next project. But not only is it reusable and clear, which makes it easy to see the stitching underneath so that you're making sure, to hit those same marks if you need to for perfect placement, that type of thing. It also tears really cleanly if you happen to accidentally stitch over it. And in this case, we're going to intentionally stitch over it because when we add our pocket cone piece in the hoop, we really need to tape it well so that it doesn't go anywhere when it gets stitched down to the back piece in the hoop, okay? So since we are intentionally going to stitch over it, it's really great that it tears so cleanly along that stitching line. And the reason it got caught here is because there's a little piece of fuzz right there. But at any rate, it tears so nice and clean from that stitching line, so you don't have to worry about popping any of the stitches out if you accidentally or purposefully happen to stitch over it. So I really love this tape, and I've used all kinds of tape for in the hoop embroidery projects. I've used masking tape. I've used washi tape. I do not recommend washi tape because it is so extra sticky. If you like using washi tape, that's fine, but I do recommend using an anti-glue embroidery needle if you're going to be using washi tape, especially something that has so many layers like this one. All right, so along with your clear embroidery tape, let's see, what else do we need? Some KK2000 temporary spray adhesive, another sticky substance, because we need to stick our pieces of felty to our stiffy stabilizer while we're working our way through the project. So all of this will start making sense as I take you through the tutorial. I also wanted to mention that keep your comments and questions coming. There's a bunch of them already right now. All you have to do is even say hi, tell me where you're watching from, put a question in the comments, share out the live stream on your own personal pages. Make sure you like us on Facebook and or subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching there, because if you win today's freebie from Sulky, that's really the only way I can get in touch with you. So if you haven't liked our page yet or you haven't subscribed on YouTube, I don't have any way of contacting you, and I will contact you personally from my own personal page so that you know it's real. There's a lot of scammers out there, so I make sure to put a little something in there in my message to you so that you know it's the real deal. If you've ever won before, you know what that is. All right, so at any rate, be sure to do all of those things, and as long as you do, you are automatically eligible to win today's gift from Sulky, which is our ice cream pouch in the hoop design. As I mentioned, it's only about $5, so I've decided to also give away a pack of the Sulky Clear embroidery tape. This is around $10 retail at sulky.com. So you will be able to create this as soon as you get your tape in the mail in your shipment. And yeah, you also need some Sulky felty. So as I mentioned, the entire pouch is made with felty. You want to make sure to have a no fray fabric for your ice cream pouch because we have all these raw edges that are going to be exposed. And the felty works really well for this. Gives it great structure with the additional stabilizer between and the fusible web. And that's right, you can use fusible web with felty. It's washable. It's a polyester felt, even though it feels almost like wool felt. It feels really, nice and has a really good sort of hand to it. It's not like that stiff craft felt that you get in the sheets at, your local big box store. It's a really nice sewing felt. And as you can see, it takes all of this thread so nicely without buckling or puckering. It is specifically manufactured to take a ton of needle penetrations. So it's really great for machine embroidery and for in the hoop projects. And now we've got felty in rolls. So you don't have to buy an entire assortment pack and get tons and tons of colors that then you're like, well, what am I going to do with this bright green, let's say? Although it is Christmas in July, And the holidays are upon us, so you may want to grab up an assortment pack. But at any rate, you can grab up just the light pink on a roll, just the tan on a roll, and you can make tons of these. They would make really great party favors if you have, you know, a little one that has a birthday party over the summer. They would absolutely love this. Fill it with a little, you know, trinket or a couple of pieces of candy or something like that. And then they all get to go back to school with this on their backpack. Super cute, very special. All right, so once you gather up your materials, here's just a couple of photos of it, but I just showed that to you. So we'll move on. First thing we're going to do is fuse our perfect applique to the wrong side of our felty. And as I mentioned, the full PDF instructions come with your design files. So you'll get the whole tutorial step by step that you can follow as you're working your way through the design at your machine. So we're going to fuse our perfect applique to our sheets of felty or our pre-cut pieces. And we're not going to hoop the felty because it's actually too small to fit in the hoop. Because if you're using a magnetic hoop like I'm showing here, you could hoop the felty because the inner hoop isn't being squeezed into the outer hoop, causing possible hoop burn or stretching of the fabric. Also, felty is a little bit thicker, right, than our traditional cotton fabric or even a canvas. So it's going to be harder to fit in the hoop. You might have to force it. We never want to force anything. That's how you get stretching and puckering and all these things happen, even when your fabric looks nice and straight and flat in the hoop. So at any rate, even if you're using a magnetic hoop, we're still not going to hoop the felty because we're using smaller rectangles of the felty as opposed to a whole sheet. If you have a whole sheet and you want to go ahead and secure it in the magnetic hoop, you may. If you're using a standard hoop or if you're pre-cutting your pieces according to the instructional PDF, then you'll want to hoop only the stabilizer. So this is only sulky stiffy in the hoop of our embroidery machine. And we're going to start with that front design, which is the cone design. And we're only going to stitch color stop 1, which is the placement line for our first piece of felty. So you can see it's just that cone shape that is color stop 1. Then we're going to take one of our tan pieces that is pre-cut into a rectangle and make sure to remove the paper backing of the fusible web. If you're using the design files that are additional files used to pre-cut your cone shape, you will already have the cone shape cut out. But be sure to remove that paper backing of the fusible web. And then we're going to just give it a little bit of a spray with KK2000, which is our air-soluble temporary spray adhesive. And you want to spray on the fusible side because then we're going to place our felty right side up on the stabilizer, covering all of those embroidery stitches. If you have a pre-cut cone piece that you are placing, you want to make sure to line it up exactly over those placement stitches. I also use some additional sulky clear embroidery tape along the outside edges of my felty rectangle. This is just a little bit extra security. Make sure nothing is going to shift during the stitch out. We're also going to add the back piece of our cone on the wrong side of our stabilizer. So you will remove the hoop from the machine, turn it over. Again, you're going to remove the perfect applique fusible web paper backing, spray it with KK2000, and place it over the back of the hoop. Now we've sandwiched our sulky stiffy between 2 layers of sulky felty. All right. Then you are going to add some clear embroidery tape to the upper and side edges and lower edge of this piece of felty. And when you place it on the hoop, make sure that the felty stays flat, because sometimes, we kind of get into the groove of things. We'll put our hoop back on the machine and that piece of felty or fabric underneath will fold toward itself when you slide the hoop onto the embroidery module. So just take a second to double check, make sure it's nice and flat. That's why the embroidery tape is important, because you could put it on the upper and lower edges and the side edges, and when you slide your hoop back onto the machine, it's not going anywhere. All right, so now you can see I have it on the back of the machine, and then I have my embroidery tape. And at the very least, put it on the top and bottom edges if you don't want to put any on the side, or if you think that you don't particularly need that with the addition of your temporary spray adhesive and all of that. So once we have our layers, we're going to put our hoop back on the machine, and we're going to go back to color stop 1. You don't necessarily have to go back to color stop 1. At this time, you could do your decorative stitches first, but I think it's just a good idea. I think it's a good idea to have that tacking stitch that just, sucks all the layers together, makes sure they're not going to go anywhere during the rest of the stitch out. So we're going to go back to color stop 1, which is going to give us that same outline stitch, and it's going to secure all of those letters. It's going to secure all of the layers. That's what I meant to say. So after you go back to color stop 1, go through the rest of the decorative stitches for the cone piece. It's a couple of different colors of tan rayon thread. Once we do that, we are going to trim only along the upper edge of the cone piece, because the next order of stitches after the decorative stitches is the satin edge stitch for the pocket. And we don't want to trim the felty after the satin edge is stitched, because then we're going to have a tiny bit of felty extending beyond our pocket. So instead, we want a nice finished satin edge at the top of our cone. So in order to get that, we are going to trim only along that little curved upper edge, and then we're going to flip over the hoop and trim only along that upper edge. All right. Then we're going to place the hoop back onto the machine, and we're going to sew that satin stitch edging. Make sense? Now we have a nice, clean, finished edge. We can tear our stabilizer away super cleanly from that edge. You won't see it at all. It'll look like the stitches just wrap around your pocket. So now you can see we can remove our stabilizer from the hoop, tear away along that upper edge, and then we're also going to tear away along the outer cone stitching perimeter so that there's no stabilizer between our layers of felty. You can't see the stabilizer at all. We're just going to tear it away nice and cleanly. Once we do that, we have our finished front piece, which is our decorative cone. So now we're actually going to fuse our pieces of felty together. So you can set your iron for a low to medium temp and fuse from the back side first to avoid those decorative stitches. And then if you need to, you can fuse along the outer edges as well. And then everything is acting as one piece for our front cone. It's fused together as one, and we can set it aside and start working on our front stitch out. So we're going to load the next design into the machine. We're going to hoop up a new piece of Sulky Stiffy Stabilizer. So here's what it looks like when you import it into the machine. If you need to rotate it based on your, available hoop sizes, you can. After we load that into our machine, we're going to do a lot of the same steps, right? We are first going to stitch our placement stitch for our felty. And you can see the first color in the design is a variegated rayon thread. That's why you can see the upper edge stitching in dark pink, and then it kind of goes around to light pink. It's called Vera Fuchsia. So it's a variegated fuchsia color. So it really looks like there's a ton of colors going on in the ice cream swirl. It looks kind of like, a sherbet or something. But it's actually 3 colors, I believe. We have the variegated pink, a variegated lime, and a variegated blue. But it looks like there's tons of colors within the ice cream on the design. So that's a really fun way to bring in lots of colors if you've only got 3 steps in a design, right? So anyway, that's why our placement stitches look like they are different colors, because I loaded the first thread color in the machine for the decorative sewing. So I just happened to use that for the placement stitches as well. So now we're going to make sure to remove our Perfect Applique Fusible Web from our pink felty. And we're going to use that KK2000 again. And we're going to secure the pink felty over the top of those placement stitches in the hoop. Instead of adding our back piece like we did for the cone, we're going to wait and add that after all of our decorative stitches are done. That way, the back of our pouch looks nice and clean, okay? So we're only going to have 1 layer of felty for now, and then we're just going to continue with steps 1 through, I can't really remember, maybe 6 or 7. Again, it's all in the instructional PDF, so you won't, there's no way you can go astray. So just make sure that you are going up to the ice cream stitches at this point. So you'll have that placement stitch because we're repeating color stop 1 once we have our felty in place. And then all of the ice cream swirl stitching will be next. And if chocolate ice cream is more your thing, you can definitely choose a variegated tan, a variegated brown, something like this, and you can have a swirly chocolate ice cream cone instead of the rainbow colors if you so desire. All right, so once those stitches are complete, we're going to turn our hoop over. We are not taking anything out of the hoop, okay, because we're going to return it back to the machine to do our final stitching, which outlines the entire cone, secures our key fob at the top, and completes the entire project. So keep it in the hoop, but flip the hoop over, and we're going to measure a 1/2 inch down from the upper edge center. You can measure from the little tip of the ice cream cone, but make sure that your line goes across the whole center, a 1/2 inch down from that upper edge. That line is going to be the placement for our key fob loop. So again, you want to use a no fray fabric like a faux leather. I happen to have a tiny little strip of faux leather. I never throw away those little strips and odds and ends because I can use them for things like this. So if you happen to have a little remnant of cork fabric in a fun color, or a piece of faux leather, or you can even use a ribbon. Okay, you don't need very much. I think it's maybe 3 or 4 inches of ribbon, and you're just going to fold it in half, making sure that your hardware, whatever you're choosing for your hardware, whether it's a D-ring swivel clip like I have here, or you could use a key ring or something like this, I keep all of the key rings that I get from little promotional things, little, things I'm never going to use, or if it falls off or something, I keep all of those little rings because I can use them for in the hoop projects. And I just put them in a little jar, and then I have different sizes and things like that I can choose from. But at any rate, we're going to make sure that our ribbon is about a 1/2 inch wide. You could go smaller if you happen to have a smaller piece of hardware. So just measure your hardware, cut your no fray fabric to size. My hardware is a little bit big for this, but I'm not bothered by it in the least. For a project like this, we don't have to get super exact, right? It's all in fun. So you do you based on the hardware that you have or that you've purchased, either a ribbon loop or faux leather or cork, or you could probably even get away with a strip of felty for, your little hanging loop. So we're going to place that along our marking that we made. So the raw edges of our loop are against the mark. We are going to tape that entire section down because it's on the wrong side of the hoop. And we don't want anything scratching up our fantastically expensive embroidery machines. So if you put the clear embroidery tape over the whole piece of hardware, not only is it not going to go anywhere, but it's not going to scratch anything up as your hoop moves around. And actually, I found it didn't even really touch my embroidery machine, the machine bed anyways, during the stitch out. But just to be on the safe side, make sure everything's protected. Make sure it's not going to snag on anything during the stitch out. So tape that really, really well. And then we're going to add our back felty piece to the back side of the hoop. And you can go ahead and also cover up your hardware with that piece of felty. So if you cut it a little bit longer than you need, that can also cover up your hardware, making sure that, no harm will happen to your machine. So cover that up really well. Make sure that all of your placement stitches are also covered by the felty. And then you guessed it, we're going to use more tape to tape down all the edges of the felty so that, again, when we put our hoop back onto the machine, the felty doesn't roll down toward itself, because then you're going to have so much bulk, not knowing why, you broke a needle or something like this. And don't worry, your needle is not going to touch that hardware at all because it's only going to go, along that upper edge of the little ice cream tip. All right. So you don't have to worry about that as long as you've taped it really well, making sure that it's out of the way of the stitching and, covered up against your embroidery machine. So now we've got our back felty in place and nice and taped. At this point, you can return the hoop to the machine. I found it was easier to place my cone pocket piece when my hoop was back onto the machine. If it's easier for you to place that on your work surface, you certainly can as well. So now we're going to place our cone fabric right over the top of the placement stitches, lining up the placement stitches that are on the cone with the placement stitches that are on that back piece. So you want to be really methodical about it. Make sure that's lined up really well. And your satin edge stitching is just underneath your ice cream stitching. And then, you guessed it, more clear embroidery tape. I taped along the entire pocket upper edge. This means my tape is going to be sewn over. But since I'm using this great clear embroidery tape, I can tear it away so cleanly from the stitching edge, I'm not worried about it. So you want to make sure you are taping across that whole pocket upper edge, tape across the bottom, and if you want, you can also tape across the side edges, but you will be stitching over that as well. So I left mine kind of open there just to err on the side of caution because our needle is going to go all the way around the project now with 2 layers of stitching. So it's going to go around twice. It's going to secure our cone on the front. It's going to secure our back felty piece, and it's going to secure our hanging loop all in one fell swoop. So lots of layers are happening now. So you want to be sure to slow your machine as low as it'll go. I didn't even bother trying it at full speed because I don't know, anxiety, foreshadowing, I'm not sure. I highly recommend you just go as low as it'll go to make sure that all the stitches are going to stitch properly, that you can watch the machine as it's going, because again, lots of layers here. I should have mentioned at the beginning of today's episode that you want to be sure to use a brand new needle for this. You don't want to use a needle that is almost dull because of the fact we are sewing through Sulky Stiffy Stabilizer. 4 layers of fusible web. It's a very, very lightweight fusible web, but 4 layers of it. 4 layers of Sulky Felty. And then when it gets to the top here, we're also sewing through 2 layers of faux leather or cork fabric or ribbon, whatever we're using for that loop. So it's a lot for your needle to go through. We really want to make sure we're using a brand new sharp embroidery needle when you are doing this project. All right, so slow it all the way down, and then you can perform the last and final color stop, which again is the full perimeter stitching, and it's going to stitch twice. So this is what the front looks like when you are done. And you can remove your stabilizer from the hoop, and we're going to do some trimming. Here's what the back looks like. So we need to remove all of the tape that we can as well, so that we can then remove our stabilizer. And you can simply tear away the stabilizer from inside all of those layers. And we want to do that before we trim up the ice cream pouch so that it's just easier to access. If we trim it and then we want to pick out that stabilizer, it's just much more difficult. But when you have your big sheet of stabilizer to work with, you can just tear it away cleanly from inside those layers before we get to the trimming. So once our stiffy is removed from the outer portion of our project, then we are going to trim along that upper edge, and we're going to trim these layers independently, because if we just went after it, we would clip off our hanging loop. So just along that upper edge where our loop is attached, you can trim those layers independently. Make sure to try and keep that the same, sort of width. So about 1/8 of an inch away from the stitching, just where your hanging loop is attached. So trim the front and then trim the back. So that's what it'll look like. Now we can trim the whole thing together as one so that it looks really nice and clean. Make sure when you get to the cone that you're following the line of the cone that you already trimmed. So make sure you have a really nice sharp pair of scissors. I like to use these smaller ones when I'm trimming stuff like this. They have a super sharp point so that you can get into these little areas of the little detailing on your ice cream. And it looks really nice and consistent and clean. And it's done. It's as simple as that. So as I mentioned, it'll fit about a 5.5 inch long pair of scissors. I'm actually going to measure this one just to see. Yeah, this is 5 inches, a 5-inch scissor. You could probably fit, I think this is a 6-inch. Let's see. I have so many pairs of scissors. I might need a support group for scissor addiction. This is a 6-inch pair of scissors, so it fits pretty nicely. Only sticks out just a little bit, still hangs really nicely, so you could add it to a project pouch, add it to a tote bag, add it to a backpack. Always have your scissors handy, or again, you could stuff it with so many things. I think it would be really cute to give these away to your sewing buddies and maybe purchase your In the Hoop embroidery design. Put it on a little USB. Can always have that at hand. This is a really great gift for somebody going back to school. Maybe they need a USB drive for college, or maybe they need, they're always needing stuff, right? You could put your key in here, add your key to the loop, put your ID in here. Well, I don't think it would fit your ID. You guys get the picture. Fill it with all kinds of fun stuff. Gift it away. Make a bunch for a summer birthday party. It would make a really great party favor. All kinds of things. Let's see. I'm going to address some of the questions, and there's some great comments that have come in. Susie Q says you could also put a small snapping strap back to front to keep the scissors in place. It's a really great idea. So you could make this a little snap tab and kind of fold it over and snap it in place, and then your scissors won't go anywhere. Really great idea. Oh, Allison says, like the USB idea, or maybe a lip balm. Great idea. It's totally going to fit a lip balm. In fact, I have one right here. That would be such a great addition to the party favor gift idea, right? So you could gift everybody this cute little thing, add a little lip gloss or a lip balm. Oh, it's perfect. Great idea. Love it. All right, I just had to demonstrate that just to make sure. Never have enough pairs of scissors. That's great. Okay, do you use an 80-12 or a 90-14 needle? So actually, for the needle for this, I think I used a 75-11 embroidery needle, because the size of your needle is really dependent on the weight of your thread, because the size of your needle, that number, is how big that needle eye is, okay? And then the type of needle is going to be how sharp or blunt or pointy or narrow your needle is. So you could also use a top stitch needle. I would think an 80-12 top stitch would also work great for this project, but I used a 75-11 embroidery. If you make sure to use a brand new needle, it's nice and sharp, you're going to have good success. Does it matter if you use a sharp or rounded needle? So an embroidery needle actually has a very slight ball point to it. And since we're using this felty, which is nice and buttery, the embroidery needle works just fine. If you were going to make this out of faux leather or a cork fabric, you would need a top stitch needle, hands down. It's much pointier. You could also use a microtex needle with that type of fabric, and it would produce a really great stitch out. All right. Is there a kit offered for this project? There is not. What a great idea, though. There's not a kit, but we do have the In the Hoop embroidery design available at sulky.com. So you can grab up the design. You'll get all the files that you need. You will also get the instructional PDF that comes with the project that has the color chart included as well. And you can grab up your variegated rayon threads in the ice cream colors of your choice. You're going to want to pick 3 threads. You could always do the same thread for all of the ice cream if you want. There are some a little bit overlapping areas of that. But like I mentioned, if you wanted to do chocolate ice cream or pistachio ice cream, something like that, you could grab up a lime green variegated thread and use that for the whole ice cream portion of the stitch out. Or you could grab up 3 different, shades of brown variegated thread. And you don't even have to use a variegated thread for the ice cream flavor. If you have somebody that loves strawberry, you could use like one light pink, one medium pink, one dark pink for those 3 thread change colors. And then, of course, grab up your felty, your sulky stiffy, and you're well on your way to creating the project. And hopefully you have some ribbon remnants or some faux leather or cork fabric remnants that you can use for your little hanging loop, and maybe a spare key ring or a key ring that you can repurpose from a different project or from one of those, promotional key rings that you get when you're out and about, especially at those farmers markets, things like that. Go up, and when they're handing out those keychains, grab them up, repurpose them for your sewing projects. All right. The extra, okay, I didn't understand that comment about straps, but I grade it. I see. Okay, now I want an ice cream cone, says Marge. Well, the great thing is you can have all the ice cream that you want with our In the Hoop pouch, and you will never gain an ounce, right? But I highly suggest grab up an ice cream, especially if you missed National Ice Cream Day, because why not? You only live once. Yvonne says, what weight is the thread, and is it rayon or cotton? It is rayon thread, and it's a 40 weight thread. So with 40 weight thread, we go with either a 7511 or an 8012 needle. But this is all out of pretty rayon variegated thread for the ice cream, and then solid 2 colors of tan for our cone stitch out. Really, really cute. All right, let's see. I'm seeing all the comments about your stream stopping, so I'm glad that you switched over to YouTube and you are able to watch. Okay, Sheila says, what would be the advantage to pre-cutting the cone? Well, you can pre-cut the cone and you can pre-cut the back pieces as well. Some people just don't love, I guess, trimming the project after it's complete. They want it to be really accurate, and they're a little bit nervous about negotiating these little lumps and bumps and curves from the ice cream, perhaps. So they like to pre-cut the fabric pieces. So we just have that option, but if it doesn't bother you, I actually prefer to cut it my own self when the project is complete, because that way I know that all my layers are going to be perfectly matched because I'm cutting it all together with the exception of that upper edge. Also, when you pre-cut your pieces, you don't have to worry about accidentally cutting this off because your 2 front and back pieces of the ice cream pouch back are already pre-cut. So that's just another safeguard, I guess. So those would be a couple reasons, to pre-cut those pieces, but you certainly don't have to. I didn't. And I actually thought it was probably easier for me to not pre-cut them because I just had this fear of not getting it matched up perfectly. So it was better for me, but might be better for somebody else if they want to try pre-cutting it. All right, let's see. Sheila says, I have the multiple bright color felty package. Could I use cork for my cone and felty for the rest? Absolutely. Especially if you have, that great cork color, that would look so good for the cone, and it would give it a little bit of textural difference as well. So absolutely, give it a try. No reason not to. Purse strap clips can be repurposed. Oh, that's a great idea too. Yeah, and if you have a purse or a handbag that is just so dilapidated, I like to cut those all apart. Sometimes I can even find a use for the lining pieces. You can rip the zippers out and reuse those. Sometimes they have really nice zippers. If it's something that can't be donated and the fabric is worn so thin in a certain area, you can salvage all the hardware. Sometimes you can even salvage an entire purse strap, if it comes off independently from the rest of the bag. So always be on the lookout for these little, pieces of hardware that you can go and use in other ways. All right. I have 300 colors of thread, so I could make a lot of different colored cones. Yes, you could make your own ice cream shop of ice cream pouches and let people pick their favorite flavor. Love it. Like the idea of using cork for the cone. Fantastic. All right, so thanks everybody for your great comments and questions and all of that. Remember, as long as you have commented or given me those great emojis, somehow engaging with the post today, sharing it out on your own page is great too. As long as you're doing those things, you are automatically eligible to win today's giftie from Sulky, which is our ice cream pouch in the hoop design. And I'm going to throw in a pack of Sulky clear embroidery tape as well. If you have not tried this new product from Sulky, it's a game changer when you're doing in the hoop projects. So I think you will really enjoy it. So also make sure to like us on Facebook if you're watching from Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching there. That way I can get a hold of you if you happen to be the lucky winner for today. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, everybody. And I hope you will tune in next week for another So What, because I have lots more fun summer projects for you, as well as some Christmas in July surprises coming up next Tuesday on another So What. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.